in that budget planner here, I want to build a mobile-like looking application. And I basically want to have a header, some toolbar at the top, which displays the title of the app, something like budget planner. And then I want to have the main content below that toolbar, where I essentially want to have an input field where I can enter some title, some name, some description of an expense, and then also the value, the amount of the expense, have a button which I can press, and then a list below of that where I basically output all my expenses, and at the very bottom of that, maybe a little sum where I see the total sum of the expenses. Now, for this, if we have a look at the official docs, this Ion app and Ion content here is important. Ion app should always wrap your entire Ionic app, and this basically just ensures that some general stylings and behaviors are set. So we can already do that. We can add Ion app in here, and we only use this once per HTML file, you could say. Or later, if you use Angular, which all runs on one and the same single page, one HTML file, you only use it as a global wrapper in your root component. You never use this anywhere else. In there, we can have our Ion content, and this is a wrapper to our main application content. Now, why would we add this? Because, for example, this controls the scrolling and makes sure that our content generally just works and is displayed correctly. So let's add Ion content. But I also wanted to have a header. So if you go back to the official docs, and you scroll to the very bottom here on the left, you should find that toolbar area. And in the end, it is such a toolbar which I want to add. Now, as you can learn here, if a toolbar is placed in the Ion header, it will appear fixed at the top of the content. And that is exactly what I want. So inside my Ion app, above of the Ion content, I'll add an Ion header. And in the Ion header, I'll add my Ion toolbar. Now, in that toolbar, I want to have a title, and indeed here we see that Ion title, and that is a component that sets the title of a toolbar. And we see a usage example here. And I'm basically just rebuilding this example now. So inside of Ion toolbar, we can add Ion title and name this budget planner. If I now save this, let me double click that index.html file to just open it in the browser. And we should see something like this. We have this nice header at the top with budget planner in here. And if we open the DevTools and we go to that mobile preview here by clicking this icon in the Chrome DevTools, we see that this also looks good on mobile devices if we simulate them. Now, also interesting, if we inspect an element here, we see that here, for example, we have the Ion toolbar. This is really rendered into the DOM. Web components are a browser feature. They're not emulated like Angular, which in the end just gives us a syntax that spits out normal HTML code. This is normal HTML code now because the browser natively supports it. But here we also see what's inside of this toolbar, for example, that under the hood a div gets rendered and another div and so on. So you can dive into this here as well. That shadow root here simply is related to that shadow DOM concept I touched on earlier. Again, if you want to learn all about that, don't hesitate to dive into my full web component and stencil course. But this is a good start. Now, we can, of course, not just add these elements, we can configure them as well. And therefore, let's go back to the toolbar. And I'm just showing you this because I want you to get into the habit of using these docs because it's so important. I, of course, know what we could configure there, but I want you to understand it as well. So let's go to the docs and there to the toolbar. And there we learn how we could add buttons, something we'll also do later in the course, to, for example, have a button that allows us to add a new item. And we see some general usage examples, also with a back button, which we'll later need, not right now. And if we scroll further down, we see the properties we can set. And I'm interested in that color property, which we can set to primary, secondary, and so on, to these base colors, which we can also override and set our own colors, of course. And that is also something we'll do later. So let's go to the toolbar and add a color of primary, maybe. And if we do that, we save that and we go back to our application and we reload. We now simply have this blue background, but please also note that the title color also adjusted. It's now white. And the title, of course, is a separate component. So these components even work together here, which is of course pretty cool. So that is our header. Now what about the content?